Welcome to the Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse podcast,
where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We are here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
And you know what, Sherry? We talk about things that people don't necessarily want to talk about. However, they're important subjects and we need to discuss them to decrease the stigma for healing.
Absolutely, Mark. And so far this year, we've been highlighting and illuminating health professionals in the cannabis space. But tonight, we have a special treat for you all. We have another twist that may not be a popular topic for some people. However, as nurses and health professionals, we must look at all the variables when it comes to teaching on the safe utilization and the consumption of cannabis. Nurse Mark, will you introduce our guest?
Oh, Sherry, I would be honored. I'm so excited to welcome our guest tonight, Tarris Batiste, former football player, Atlanta Falcons, author of Smoke It, But Don't Let It Smoke You. Now, after Tarris's football career ended abruptly, he switched directions and returned to Georgia State University to further his education. While getting his MBA, he became interested in understanding his own dependency issues. Traveling, researching, and becoming the clever chief, he joined the conversation about the future of cannabis. He cautions people, smoke it, but don't let it smoke you. In his book, he shares a story of how smoking affected his life and the steps he used to accomplish balance.
There we go. Welcome, Tarris. In this day and age, Tarris, we know cannabis is becoming legalized more and more throughout the globe.
Absolutely.
And we often see those people that are very, very pro-cannabis. And sometimes we see a lot of people who are biased negatively towards cannabis. So what would you say your view is on cannabis? Is it somewhere in the middle?
Yeah.
Let's talk about why you wrote that book.
Yeah, no, for sure. First, thank you for having me on, Sherry and Mark. I'm happy to be on. I think you guys doing something great, and I definitely want to be involved. So that's why I jumped on. But in terms of your question, Sherry, I would say I'm right there in the middle. Right there in the middle. I'm for it, but also know it's also it can hurt you if you don't know how to balance it in a certain way. So I'm right there in the middle of that.
There you go. Excellent. So, okay, so let's go back. You're 28 years old. You're a young man. What was your relationship like with cannabis as a kid? Like, how did it affect you? How did you get introduced? What introduced you to the plant?
Yeah, so I wasn't always the clever chief, right? I didn't started off educating myself, right? I just started to use it as a consumer. And I started at a young age, and really just growing up, I didn't really see anyone that was accepted for cannabis, right? We kind of looked at it in bad ways. So that kind of affected how I felt, right? But it made me feel good when I used it, right? So just doing at a young age, trying to figure it out, try to balance that out. That was pretty tough, and I didn't know where I felt or where I stand in that position.
Right. So how old? So when you started using cannabis, did you start smoking it? Was it with your friends? Was it like kind of peer pressure type of thing?
For sure. So I mean, I wouldn't say it was peer pressure. It was just the environment I was in, right? And when I first started, the very first time it was smoking. I wouldn't say I started smoking consistently until my sophomore year of high school. It just started to kind of take over from there. And then we started to experience it in different ways with the bongs, right? With the water pipes and just trying to get creative around that.
Right. Right. So when did you feel what point in time did you feel that you were smoking too much or that you felt like you needed to change paths?
Yeah. From my sophomore year, like I said, I was going consistently, and that it followed me through college. And through college, I really just, sometimes you slip off with your grades, right? You're a college student. You're not that lucrative yet, right? So, finances, just seeing that slip there, not balancing there. And I noticed I had a problem, right? I failed a couple drug tests in college, right? As an athlete, still didn't quit. I used to hate when people said habit. Like, Tarris, you have a habit. Tarris, you have a habit. I say, it's more like a dependency, right? I kind of depended on it in certain ways. And that was kind of my relationship, especially from a young age. That was my relationship until probably about mid-20s for sure.
Okay, so when you say you depended upon it,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Because that's like, as a nurse, that makes me want to dig into the questions of, because usually when when someone says I'm using cannabis, I dependent on it. I'm dependent on it because of sleep. I'm
Yeah.
dependent on it because I'm really anxious. I
Yeah.
did a puff of CBD before I came on because, right? You know what I mean? So people will have a reason of why they may feel that they need it or using it. What about you? Were you just kind of like ripping bongs and joints?
No, no.
Like,
Like at first, like I said, it was just my environment. And then when I got to college, I definitely used it as an aid, right? I played
right.
safety, I played football, I played defense. So I use it as an aid, right? It would relax me after practice or for games. In terms of saying dependent on it, I felt like I was a slave to it. I felt like I couldn't maneuver my life without it. I wasn't really happy without it. And I mean, I just don't think you should live that way. It wasn't really a healthy relationship. And that's why I felt kind of dependent on it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you feel
Taurus,
like you kind of,
yeah,
go ahead,
Sherry.
Mark. Go ahead, Mark. No, you go.
Yeah,
I've been talking.
so I got to take my first flight in over a year today. So I flew up from Florida. I'm in Boston for some meetings. And so I had the opportunity to read your book on the flight up.
Okay.
Man, and I absolutely loved it. And yeah, man, it's well written, and it's a really good, what I feel like is a good dive into your experience with it. And when you started it in the 7th grade, and I found there were a lot of parallels because I started at the age of 12, and it was just like, it's with a group of friends, somebody wanted to smoke. I said, well, okay, I want to feel like I fit in. I'm going to just do this.
Yep.
And so it was really cool to get sort of your timeline of how, it started out as sort of just, hey, gonna hang with the friends, and how it progressed through to where you're at today, saying, don't let it smoke you. Like, I really, really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
So Sherry, you were gonna ask the question
about escaping and avoiding emotions.
Yes.
That was one of the things. That was where I was at. So when you say, smoke cannabis, but don't let it smoke you. So do you almost feel like when it's, how is it smoking you? So when you know what I mean? Like, so what would be an example?
Yeah.
I guess the best way I can.
I think right now, I mean, you two know as nurses right now, knowing exactly what you're smoking or what you're using, whether you're eating it or tinctures, whatever, right? Knowing what you're using and the power of when you're using it is big. Like, for example, I've noticed for my use, sometimes some strands make me have sex better. Some strands make me work out better. Some strands make me relax better. So, but it's not more of a indica sativa or a hybrid. It's more of the terpenes and really getting down to what exactly it is. So, like I said, don't let it smoke you. It's so much education in there. That way you can figure out what's best for you individually.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, conscious intention. When you go to use the plant, you consciously have an intention of, this is why I'm consuming it. I'm choosing this product because this and this X, Y, and Z reason. And so it's like the responsible use instead of saying medically, recreationally, we say use and misuse.
Yeah.
Because the minute it hits our body, it always acts as medicine.
Absolutely. Right? And with the amount, right? Everybody amounts is different, right? So I think that's big to know as well. Like, my favorite strand is Wet and Cake, right? But I wouldn't tell you what I like about my favorite strand because it may be different for you as you use, right? So all that stuff goes into let it smoke you, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I find, when you read a book like yours, you kind of compare what your own experience is to what you were talking about, how your experience was. And like you would say, you would smoke it before, going into a social situation, or you'd smoke it after you were working out. And, for me, it's different because I'm super sensitive to Delta-9 THC. So I rarely ever smoke it. And if I do, I'm very conscious that it better not have anything to do after I smoke.
Okay.
Because it ain't going to get done. Like, it's going to be the end of it. So for me, I'm very intentional about when, even if I do that. But, my experience is, for me, edible is the better way for me to do it, because it's that metabolization and that different conversion. So I think I really enjoyed sort of hearing your viewpoint of recognizing that you weren't really in control of the use of it. It was in control for a period of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And not as if it was completely debilitating. Like, you still accomplished things, right? You still went to college, you still played ball before
that was tough, Mark. That was tough. It was like, hey, how is it bothering me if I'm still checking all my boxes? I'm still moving forward, right? So that was tough. And it was, like I say, it's still tougher for people individually, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you say it was the mental, emotional, those types of things that helped you? Because
it was all that, Sherry, and the timing. Like, we're not where we're at now, where you can see CBD doors. I'm in Georgia right now. You can see CBD stores in Georgia, right? We wasn't there then. Nobody was like the green nurse where you openly talk about cannabis on Facebook, right? So we wasn't there then. So I wasn't so accepting, and I wasn't so I guess you can say open about it, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't afford to be.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially being a black man. Like, just to be honest, I couldn't afford to be completely.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
You had to be really, really careful. That just makes my stomach curl just thinking of that. You know what I mean?
But it's the truth. It's the truth of the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Woo. So here's a good one. What were some of the benefits? So when you decided to you made a decision, you decided to stop. How was it? What were the challenges that you had when you stopped smoking? And then what were some of the benefits that you saw?
Yeah. So I completely honest, Sherry, Mark, I never really stopped.
Oh.
I maneuvered it for me, right?
There you go.
For me. I use it as a reward. Like, okay, for example, I'm a reader. Right. So what I would do is I like to smoke blunts at times. Don't judge me. OK, I like
no judgment.
No, you're nurses.
You'll never get judgment on this show, bro.
Never.
What I would do is I would roll up a blunt. Right. I would put it as a bookmark in my book. Right. And I would wait till I read the chapter, and then I would reward myself after. Right. So I never really stopped. I just figured out ways to make it work towards me as a reward.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
There you go. So cannabis isn't smoking you. You're consuming cannabis consciously.
There you go. Cannabis.
There you go.
Right? Cannabis wellness.
Cannabis wellness. There you go. Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, a couple of the other things too. One of the questions that I found fascinating was, success, measuring your success while trying to personally grow and to not let it control you.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you measure your success?
Yeah, so it's like a day by day thing, right? Did I win the day, right? Did I sit around and smoke all day, or did I get some stuff done before I pleasured myself, right? Business before pleasure, right? So it's really just taking that day by day and trying to tackle those things. That's pretty much it. Really not trying to put too much harp on myself. If I do, have a 2 or 3 days, around 420, if I do smoke a little bit too much, but bringing myself back to making sure it's not smoking me the next day or the next week,
Right.
So use things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your favorite way to consume? So if you're consuming cannabis, what are the types of ways that you like to use it? Or what do you think is the best way?
Yeah. The healthiest way?
Yeah.
I think we're still finding that out. I would say some type of tincture. I just figured out they have weed wine. Have you guys seen that? I live out in Seattle, so I just figured that out. So hopefully when I try that may be my favorite way to consume. Yeah, look at Mark. There you go, Mark.
Wow, man, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I personally I like the water soluble THC and CBD, making a little mocktail with it's like a little lemonade, a little seltzer water, and water soluble CBD and water soluble THC. For me, just because alcohol, I don't respond very well to alcohol.
Okay. And what about you, Mark? I'm curious.
Mark does it all.
The military guy does it all, hard nose.
I've dabbled in a lot of different things.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to say that, I am absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, I am an edibles kind of guy.
Sure.
And very, much more on the low dose edible side of things.
Yeah.
And, that for me is relaxing. And honestly, if there's too much THC content,
Mhm.
I'm going to have a bad reaction. I'm going to have panic attack. I'm going to be anxious. It's not going to be a fun experience for me, which is really, the reason that, back in the day I gave it up and I didn't use cannabis for, God, it had to be 30 years. It was just done because it wasn't a good experience for me. But now having, entered the space and kind of worked through it, as Sherry says about her experience, it took her 2 years to figure out what worked for her, to treat her issues and not be, incapacitated and intoxicated by it day in and day out. Like it took a while for me to figure out, 5 milligrams of an edible. I'm a happy guy, super focused, work well, like get stuff done. And for me, that's where it lands,
Yes.
That kind of brings me into the next thing, like microdosing, right?
Yeah.
Future, right?
Yeah.
Future. I think I watch sports, right? So I've seen they just legalized it in sports, right?
Yeah.
I was seeing LeBron, just because I think we all know LeBron, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was seeing LeBron warming up with the CBD gummy in his mouth, right?
Yep.
Like, that's where we're going. And then the little kid's gonna say, I want to do that too. I want to do that too, Mom. LeBron does it, So it's just, we're growing. The industry's growing, and I think we need to make sure we can control ourselves as we, decide.
We can be responsible for it, right?
So very responsible. So the thing about microdosing too, Taurus, which I think is a really cool concept, is that microdosing actually mimics the endocannabinoid system, right? So you think about it, we're producing these internal endogenous cannabinoids that are very similar to the plant upon demand, right? With whatever's going on in our body. So it's an on switch, we release the anandamide and the 2-AG, and it kind of circulates around and does something, and then it's an off switch, so it's constantly on and off. So it makes sense that microdosing, multiple different ways, depending upon the patient, would mimic our own endocannabinoid system. Would you agree with me, Mark?
I absolutely would agree with you, Sherry.
Yeah,
I'm a huge proponent of microdosing, and whether it's cannabis or other things that are coming into the space, into the world of medicine. I really think microdosing is the way to go. Like your body just is going to respond so positively to that type of thing.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Right. Weird sound in the background. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay.
Washer.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Sherry.
I was just going to tell Taurus too, just a little bit, just a little bit about how I consume, because everyone's like, patients will say, "Oh, Sherry, how do you consume?" I use it multiple different ways. Okay. And inhalation is my choice of preference for when I'm having the nausea and I can't get it in any other way. And so one of the things that we talk about as cannabis nurses sometimes is stacking, right? So stacking, so you don't have to be doing large amounts all at once. It's a little bit, so a puff, a little bit of a tincture, and maybe a capsule or an edible in small doses. Because when you think about it, you inhale, it goes into your system within the first 5 to 10 minutes. And depending upon how much you smoke, it's going to last anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 hours. And then the tincture is another method of administration, gets into sublingually, bypasses the digestive tract, right? Is another way of getting in. Some of it you swallow, some of it you may digest.
Right.
It's another way of getting it in. And then the edible, like Mark said, you take it in, it goes into your system, it goes into your liver where it converts. So you have multiple different ways. And then the topicals, I'm sure for sports. Do you use topicals?
So I was done when that time was coming, but I wish, like I could see myself using a CBD bath bomb just after a game.
Oh man, I think that's just such a great way to use CBD to get your CBD.
Man. Oh, totally. Well, your skin's your largest organ. Think about that, right? And we have cannabinoid receptors in our skin. I'm going to tell you my bath bomb story. I was up in Vermont and I got this awesome bath bomb, and there was a tub that literally, it could have gone up to here on me. And I'm laying there and I got the music going and it's perfect. And all of a sudden I fell asleep and I felt like I was a head floating.
No.
I had no body. I totally
cool.
it was really, really cool. I'm like, oh my God, I'm ahead. And then I had to move around, and then I got back into my body. But yeah, very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Taurus, in your book, man, there was one quote that I really, really enjoyed, and I think it's appropriate for all of us being here right now. And that's when, you were at church attending a sermon and you heard the pastor say, the same thing you struggle with will be the same thing you use to bless others.
Absolutely.
Man, that just hit me, and I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
That's why I do what I do. And it was so good to hear that you got that same message that, hey, you know what? I had these struggles. It's with cannabis. Mm-hmm. It's going to be legal everywhere soon. Yep. Like, people are going to have that same problem. There are going to be a lot of people who have that same issue and wonder, if it's smoking them or they're smoking it.
Exactly.
So, you coming out and writing this book and sharing all of your experiences goes right to that. Like, you're blessing others with sharing your experience, man. So thanks for writing the book.
Oh, thank you, Mark. We feel so good that you just said that. So good.
Oh, absolutely. And for people that are out there that are new and watching, Taurus is 28 years old. So this is an important thing for people to understand, is that we have a young man who is completely evolved with this plant and doesn't see it as good or bad, but sees it as a tool for cannabis wellness. And, and you're very mature about how you speak about it. And then writing the book as well, I think is going to be really great for so many different young people in that age group, to see. And especially too, for people in the sports arena. You've got, high school kids that play sports. My kids play sports, all of them, baseball, basketball, and then even in the college level, them learning and understanding from your book.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Go ahead.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be that bridge to help people cross over in the near future. So it's going to be great stuff.
Yeah. And that's we're all here just to help educate people on how to have a safe cannabis experience.
Yeah.
And it's always medicinal. It always is, even if you're if you're getting it off the street or wherever you happen to be getting it. It's medicinal. You use it to make yourself feel a little bit better.
Yep.
Depending on whatever it happens to be at the moment. But to have you come out and talk about, you recognized, for yourself personally, that it wasn't the way you wanted it to be. And coming out and actually sharing that is great. And I think that's what we do, Sherry, is we share our personal experiences with it, which are completely different. Like like your methods of using cannabis that create this amazing life that you live are different than the ways that I use cannabis.
For sure.
They have this amazing life that I have, and different from Taurus. Like, he uses it in his own way. And I think, we talk about that all the time, that it's absolutely a personal experience. Like, it's not something that you're going to shove into a pill and say, everybody takes this pill and it'll have this effect. Like, it ain't that. It's completely individual and up to you. And so that's why we all do what we do.
And that's why we do what we do.
That experience, to have that, to figure out where they fit in this space. Absolutely. And how to utilize it really to have a good, solid experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I actually for you, Mark and Sherry, I got a question. Right. Yeah. So as a young man or a young lady, right? If we decided to get into cannabis use, right? What will be the healthiest way that you guys would point us to? What would be the healthiest way that you would say, hey, maybe they're not sure if they want to use edibles or tinctures or smoke, but where would they start from first?
Well, I would first ask where they feel most comfortable. Okay. Number one. Yeah. And number two, what is your experience? Have you used cannabis before in any method of administration? And have you had a bad reaction? So when people are interested in it, I always want to know what do they feel most comfortable trying first? Because it's how I look at it is this. There's really no right or wrong. It's trial and success, right? It took me 2 years to figure out how to make cannabis work for me so I could use the plant every day to get off of all the pharmaceuticals I was on and to live my best life and to function effectively. And that's different for everyone. And so, I'll just kind of share really quickly. Here's a good story. I love stories. My mother is the perfect story. My mother was anti-cannabis. She blocked me on Facebook and wrote me out of her will. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my mother was not pro-cannabis at all either.
Nope. And so what ended up happening was I did it anyways, and I started to feel better. I got off of pharmaceuticals. We started a podcast. I've been taking care of a nun, and I had a nun come on my show and share her compelling story of healing, getting off of fentanyl. Okay, so this nun was on 400 micrograms of fentanyl. She came on. I asked her, I said, "Sister, what would Jesus say about cannabis?" And sister says, "Sherry, Jesus would say, would the frig did it take you so long to use this God-given plant that I created for you? Right. Jesus created it. He would expect us to use it." And that's what the nun said. I took that clip and I sent it to my mother. Mm-hmm. My mother called me up and said, "What's the gateway?" Okay, so she's very new to cannabis, very scared of cannabis. The first thing she said was, "I don't want to get high." And I go, "You don't even know what it means to get high. How can you even say that? You've never done it before." So right away, I knew what I was dealing with. So I said, "Mom, let's start off with your largest organ. We're going to start off with your skin." And 2 ingredients. This is it. 2 ingredients: CBD isolate and MCT oil. Boom, together. And now let's use that on your skin, Mom, and see how you feel. And so she didn't have a bad reaction, no adverse reaction. It's not going to make you high because it doesn't get into her bloodstream. And she started to get comfortable with the plant. A couple of weeks later, she goes, "It could be better, couldn't it?" And I go, "Oh yeah, Mom, it could be a lot better." We started to add the other cannabinoids. We added broad spectrum. And so she started doing a tincture and a topical. That was her next thing was the tincture, because she could control it. She had more control. She could read the bottle. It was very, it was something that she could control. And then later on, she goes, "It could be better." And yes, it could be better. We started her on full spectrum CBD, just a different tincture. Mm-hmm. And then she wanted to actually experience what it felt like to experience THC. So she was doing really well on just full spectrum CBD products, topicals, capsules, and tinctures. And then she wanted to have more relief. And so I introduced her to chocolate. This is a good story. And so I told her just to have 1 square. She had a chocolate bar. It was 15 squares. I said each square was 5 milligrams. And I said, just do 1. And so the next day I said, let's talk the next day. So, and if you have any problems, call me. Well, she didn't call me. And so I asked her, I go, "Mom, how did it go?" And she goes, "I didn't listen." I go, "What do you mean? What do you mean you didn't listen?"
Oh, no.
She goes, "I ate 3. I said, "You ate 3 cannabis chocolate squares?" And I said, "Mom, are you okay? What's happening? Yeah, you all right? But anything bad?" And she goes, "Oh, it was wonderful."
Yeah.
Right. So she had a positive experience. And so now, and then from there, it took her, educating her that she can't do THC in the daytime. She just does full spectrum in the daytime. And then in the evening, she starts to add a little bit of THC so she can have a little bit more euphoria, feel good, relax, and have a good night's sleep.
Have a good night's sleep. Right.
Yeah. So that's how I work with someone like her. But did she smoke it at all? No.
No.
That wasn't her choice.
Right. Those two she started off on, what were those names again?
So the very first one she did was a CBD isolate. So it's the isolated molecule of CBD. It's missing the rest of the plant. Okay. And so we combined that with a carrier oil, MCT oil. You can use it. We can either do olive oil, MCT oil, hemp seed oil. And so it was just 2 ingredients. The next product she tried was still a THC product, a THC-free product. It was broad spectrum. So broad spectrum CBD is whole plant. Right. The other cannabinoids, the terpenes, but 0 THC.
Everything but the THC.
Okay. Yep. And then she graduated to full spectrum, where she had the trace amounts of THC, and then slowly but surely we incorporated an edible into her diet. So that's just one way. So that was how I worked with my mom to get her where she's at. But like we said, everyone.
Yeah. A lot of people fall into that category, right, Sherry? A lot of people who are, cannabis naive is what we'd call them, fall into that category of some of them may never, ever want to smoke. ever that might be off the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine because there's so many other ways to actually enjoy the benefits of cannabis. Doesn't
Absolutely
have to be.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be. I got a good smoking story for you too. This is a great story. So there was a patient I was taking care of, and he did not want to smoke. Anti-smoking. He had stage 4 lung cancer. He was about to go on hospice. He was using cannabis, but he had intractable nausea and vomiting. He just could not keep anything down. Mm-hmm. And so we tried sublingual, we tried rectal, we tried all the different ways, and nothing worked. And so he was a Chinese speaking man, didn't speak a word of English. His daughter spoke English, and she asked me to come to the house and to teach them how to roll a joint and to be there while he did it. So I have to say it was very, very rewarding. It was, it was really, really rewarding just to handhold them through that process and how interested and that they both were. And then when it finally came time, the daughter actually lit the joint and he took a puff, and he was like looking at me, and all of a sudden his eyes got really big, and he took another one. And he did 3. And I said, let's just stop right there. Let's just see how you're doing. And so then I was educating the daughter. I said, so now that he has that relief, he's settled in, he's had that relief. Now what we want to do is we want to get the tincture and the edible into him for more long lasting relief. Mm-hmm. So it was really, really great. So in this man's life, he was able to use the cannabis to inhale, to decrease his anxiety, decrease his nausea enough where he was able to use another form of administration that was longer lasting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Powerful.
Isn't that a great story?
Powerful. You know what I heard in that? Visiting Cannabis Nurse Association.
Green nurses.
We'll come to your house, and we will assist you and coach you. Yeah, I think that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the most rewarding experiences for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why we're all here.
That's why we're all here.
So Taurus, listen, so you wrote this book. That's not all you're up to, though.
No. Yeah, what else? What's going on?
What's going on, bro? What else are you up to, man?
You're the chief.
So So I actually, it's a blog. I have a blog out there called cleverchief.org. And on there, I kind of just go into my stories, right? I go into my stories, not all positive, some negative, where it was smoking me, right? I really want to let people go diver in deeper into me. And I also put things that they want to know on there. So maybe if you're interested in how to get a medical card, you can figure that out in your state. So I know people will probably say, where does he stand? They probably want to know, where does I stand in cannabis? But so I kind of do it all on Clever Chief. So they can kind of pull from it and learn a little bit about me as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so we have everything, all of the contact information for Taurus is written right below in the blurb. His LinkedIn, his Facebook, his Instagram, and your website.
But do we have the Amazon link to purchase your book, man?
Yes, we do. I did it.
All right.
Boom. How would I ever forget that? Never, ever. No,
I'll tell you, it was a really great read. Like, I'd tell you if it was shit. I really would. I'd be honest. I would be, right, Sherry? I'm an honest kind of guy, man. If it was a bad book, I would be saying, well, it was okay. No, I got to read it. It was a good read. You definitely want to pick this book up. And I'm telling you, there are some really good tips and tricks in this book about how to. What I found, it really went further than cannabis. It was about how do you just get into your life? How do you do that introspection and figure out exactly what's good for you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, and that
makes me feel so good that you read that you understand.
Man, it's such a good. I had to, man. I had to. It was, and I personally will vouch for the fact that this is a great book, and you really need to pick it up.
Now I need that Amazon review. Mark.
Oh, that's right. I got to leave an Amazon review. Oh, I got to leave a review for you, and I have to leave a review for Paula at Alamo Rent-A-Car in East Boston, because I promised her I would leave a review for her, and she said nobody ever does. I said, you don't know Nurse Mark. Nurse Mark will do it for he says he's going to do.
We'll go.
He sticks to his word.
Mrs. Worcester? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, my wife's listening in here.
Is Jamie there
I
with
said
you?
I'd marry her, and a week later we got married. So
My man.
yeah, man. You just got to get
Oh.
fun, right? Life, you got to live life.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. That's what we call it. That's what we say, right? So all the time, you're going to hear me say it. I've been saying it for 3.5 years since I started my podcast.
Oh yeah.
Really, 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 truly, what's it about? It's about living your best life and helping others do the same.
And that's why we're here.
I love that.
Yeah. All right. Any last things that you want to kind of get on the plate, talk about?
That you want people to know? What do you want people to know about you?
I'm gonna leave the audience out with this, okay? So when you think about the book, Don't Let It Smoke You, I'm not coming from a parental or authoritative voice, right? I'm coming from like a friend-tor, like just an older brother or an older sister, like, hey, just don't do what you do, just don't let this smoke you, right? Me and my brother, I have an older brother, we talk about this all the time. Our favorite saying is, don't let the good life, because we like to smoke, stop you from the great life, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave the audience with that. Do what you ever, just don't let it smoke you. So yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tarris, for joining us. Really, really grateful. And for being such a young man, boy, you got it together.
Tarris.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
It has been really, really fun having you on and talking about that book. And again, people, go out and grab this book. Do it right now. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Tarris, keep up the good work, man. cleverchief.org. Check out that blog. And Sherry,
I already said it once.
Tomorrow at 8 a.m., right?
8 a.m. Absolutely.
So, Tarris, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 days a week. We're doing a live stream on Facebook and YouTube to the Green Nurse channels, groups. So, stop by sometime. Chat it up with some people. We got people stopping by from all over the world.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll make sure I follow.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This has been a great Wednesday night. Happy Hempy Hump Day. Whoop, whoop.
All right.
All right, guys.
You know what? We'll see you all soon. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And Sherry, please do tell me one more time, baby.
It's about living your best life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And helping others to live theirs.
Do the same.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tarris. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, guys.